Hey folks, Matt Easton here, Scholar Gladiatoria. So, as all of you know, I run a HEMA class, have done for the last 18 years, thereabouts. God, how does time go so quickly? Or so slowly sometimes. But as many of you have noticed, I think a few of you have noticed that I don't have any hair. Maybe I'll do a video about baldness at some point, but this is specifically about the plight of bald men in HEMA. And there is a bald men in HEMA Facebook group, because of course there's something for every type of person in HEMA Facebook group somewhere if you look deep enough into Facebook. But there are a few challenges to being a bald person in HEMA, but the primary one, there aren't many in fairness because we're just awesome, but the main drawback to being bald in HEMA is sweat on your face. Okay, and now I am a sweaty man. When I exert myself, and it's nothing to do with fitness, I've always been very sweaty. Even when I was on the school athletics team, age 16, whatever, I was always very sweaty, but particularly out of my head. For some reason I sweat a lot out of my head. Maybe that's why I lost my hair. Maybe it's some kind of Uber evolution cooling device. But I don't know. I've always sweat a lot out of the top of my head, not that much on my body, whether I'm running or playing tennis or doing all the things that I used to do, or indeed when I'm fencing. Now, one of the unfortunate things about sweating a lot out of your head is it fills your fencing mask up with sweat, which is not very nice. It's fairly grim. It means you've got to wash your mask more often. It gets a bit smelly. It's just a bit uncomfortable. It's not very nice at all. But in addition to that, it has a more practical sort of problem. I don't have the world's biggest eyebrows, and so the sweat tends to just pour down my face like a waterfall, which is not very nice. I mean, you get used to it, but it's kind of pretty damn annoying, it has to be said. So over the years, I've done various things, from nothing to wearing a bandana around my head, to sweatbands, to all sorts of other things. Some people suggested applying roll-on deodorant to my head. You know what? I don't really fancy doing that. I can't explain why, but I don't really want to cover my scalp in deodorant. But anyway, but there are, there's various possible things you could do to try and deal with this issue. But fundamentally, what I mostly do is just stick a bandana on my head, and it soaks up loads of sweat. I usually get through 2 of them in an evening of training, which is fairly grim. Means I've always got to wash loads of bandanas and all that kind of stuff, but it does protect my mask to some extent from the sweat, although not that much. But there is another challenge or issue. Now, I have to say, I don't get hit in the head an awful lot. That's not a boast, but I just don't get hit hard on the head very much. Partly it's probably because I mostly focus on sabre. I think if I was doing longsword, it would definitely happen more often because I'm not so good at longsword. But also the fact is I just don't get hit on the head that much because I'm okay at protecting my head. But if you don't have hair on your hair is an absolutely awesome shock absorber, okay? If you don't have hair on your head, quite simply you don't have as much padding between you and the mask. Now, any fencing mask is going to be made of, well, most fencing masks are going to be made of a metal mesh with padding inside. Now, this is a special HEMA mask. I'm not going to be reviewing this or talking about this in this video, but you'll notice it's got some adaptations. But anyway, that's an exciting new development. This is a prototype version, okay? But this is a specialized HEMA mask. It's got reinforcing bars in it. It's got padding inside. But essentially, what this is it's a larger mask than I would need for my head. And the reason I've decided to do this, I actually have several masks at any one time, but the reason I've decided to do this is partly as an experiment. So I normally wear a size L or large fencing mask. Okay, I haven't got a very big head, but I haven't got a tiny head either. I've decided to get a mask that's one size bigger, or to ask for a mask that's one size bigger, because this mask's for me to test and ultimately review. So that's a size XL, with the intention to wear one of these. Okay, now I actually know several people who have worn these for years. What is this? This is a rugby scrum cap, essentially. Okay, so this is to protect your skull and your brain from impacts during playing rugby. you can get similar hats like this. I am aware that this looks pretty gimpy and actually looks quite like Walder Frey's soldiers from Game of Thrones, who do also look like gimps wearing these type of coif type head things. But it's an arming cap, isn't it? When you look at what was worn underneath medieval helmets, if anything, sometimes they didn't wear anything, but if anything underneath, it was often something like this, an arming cap. Okay, so it's not a new idea. And it has the obvious benefit of providing impact protection. Now, I know a couple of people who, for various reasons, need to protect their heads, particularly during, from strikes. Even through a mask, you can get quite a nasty concussion, or sometimes even an impact injury on your face. I can see, waffles we call it, where the grill goes into a cheekbone or a nose or forehead. So this provides extra protection against that, and of course from concussion as well. But for me personally, what it's primarily about is keeping the fricking sweat on the top of my head, or rather in this. So this is an experiment. I might find that it makes me exceptionally hot. Of course, I've decided to do this at the hottest time of the year in Britain. It's about 30 degrees centigrade outside at the moment, which is pretty hot for Britain. And but nevertheless, I'm going to experiment with wearing one of these essentially arming caps or rugby cap underneath a mask, and it fits, so long as it's an XL mask. I'll just show you, it fits on pretty easily. There we go. I'm trying to avoid getting the microphone hit by the bib, but it fits on perfectly well. And now this is all tight. I've got more protection to the back and the sides and the top. But most importantly, when I take the mask off, my cap stays on my head, keeps all the sweat on my head, and importantly, I could have 2 or 3 of these and throw them in the washing machine when they're disgusting, essentially. And they're relatively cheap as well, and easily replaceable. They're easy to get hold of on Amazon. I'm not going to recommend any particular make because this is the first one that I've personally owned. Lucy, my wife, actually has used one for a while. But not for sweat reasons, because she's got plenty of hair and doesn't sweat as much on her head as I do. For her, it's more just for impact protection. So there we go. That's really my current experimentation, is to combine a larger mask, and it does need to be a larger mask. I experimented putting this under a size L mask, so the size I'd normally wear, and it felt like my head was being squeezed inside some kind of giant press. It was very unpleasant, and also very hot because it was being compressed. Combined with a larger mask and one of these, I think it's a good idea. And you know what? The fact is that fencing masks were, these fencing masks anyway, were originally designed for sport fencing. They weren't designed for HEMA, and we're hitting each other with much more substantial and heavy and stiffer swords than sport fencers are. So these masks have become beefed up, they have become more substantial with time, and adaptations on them specialised to HEMA, but ultimately these weren't designed for exactly what we're doing, unless you're doing small sword anyway. And so, sticking a padded arming cap on might just be a generally good safety idea anyway. It provides protection to the whole top of the head, keeps the mask slightly further away from the face. Maybe just it's a good idea. Maybe it's something that more people will move towards. The disadvantage, heat. No question about it. I'm not looking forward to having an extra thing on my head, but frankly, I'm already sweating buckets anyway when I fence, so I may as well sweat buckets and it be contained in a cap that I can then throw in the washing machine easily every week, which I can't do with a fencing mask. So it's about protecting the head and protecting the fencing mask to an extent. So I'll let you know how it goes anyway. And hopefully it'll work out, and hopefully I'll have less sweat on my face and less sweat in my mask. But it's maybe something that some of you have tried out already. If you're already doing something like this, or you have some other solution to being bald and being a fencer, then post underneath. If you want any other insights from me about the wonderful world of being a bald man in HEMA, then look out for future videos, because I'm sure I'll be talking more about that topic again. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you really soon for another video. Might be HEMA related, might not be. See you folks.